पियो बात मारौँ आज हामी दुई गफ गफ गरौँ. Hello and welcome to the Sex Lives of Kathmandu Girls, Bisexual Education, Bhag 2.
Bhag 3 or Part 3.
Yeah, Part 2.
Yes. We had a whole little skit set up.
Yeah, and I think we fucked that up, but that's okay. It doesn't matter.
That's life. Sometimes we fuck things up, and that's okay.
And that's okay. I am Dawa Didi, and giving you such kernels of wisdom as sometimes it's okay to fuck up is your Pinazu.
John.
Hello, John. How are you doing today?
I'm doing alright. Just practicing stuff.
What have you been practicing?
The skit.
Yes, that's true. We have been practicing some skits, and you've also been working on your Nepali, haven't you?
Yes. I've also been listening to other podcasts in Nepali as well.
Oh, what podcast have you been listening to?
It's a podcast from Paradigm Podcasts. It's like this one called Nepali Torioru.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, they've got like 6 episodes out, but they talk about basically about things relating to women in Nepal. And I think
6 episodes out so far.
So far, I think.
At the time of recording.
Yeah. The first it's really interesting. The first one was about periods basically, and they have the topic as they talk about it, and they have a bunch of people like sending in sort of like confessions that they like read out.
That's really cool.
And then they have a discussion about those confessions. And then the second one is about consent, and that one's a bit more varied. So they talked about consent a bit, and then I got to the bit where they were talking about like grooming, which is.
So is this in Nepali or is this in English?
It's in Nepali.
And do you understand it?
Maybe like 60%. Like the language, yeah, I understand a good chunk of it, but I'm also relying on the fact that I already know a decent amount about the topic, and also the fact that like between the Nepali there's islands of English I can use to anchor myself.
Nepangrizi, basically.
Yeah, but it's like a good chunk of the time. It depends. Sometimes I speak more in English, sometimes I speak more in Nepali, but it's a healthy mixture.
That is really cool. I have to listen to that podcast. It sounds really cool. I'm really happy to see that young people... So these are, you said, young women.
Yeah. I think they were, like, one of them was saying that she's 23.
Oh, really?
So, like, in their early 20s. Yeah, I found out about it because I was, like, I just saw the same Paradigm podcast. They did, like, a podcast where they interviewed Ankit Shrestha, who's, like, one of my favourite artists.
Okay. Oh.
One of my favourite Nepali artists.
John is far more plugged in with the Kathmandu internet than I am.
Well, I mean, to be honest,
upcoming artists.
It's mostly just I just like music, and so I just like listen to certain musicians.
But yeah, I really
so I'm just
appreciate
getting a bit more
it.
involved in this stuff now.
I really appreciate it because it has actually meant that I have been able to be acquainted with so many more younger artists, and also now you're telling me about this podcast that I definitely have to listen to.
Yeah,
it's really, really cool. So anyway, quite a bit of a tangent. Yeah. Let's get back to what we were talking about. This is the second part of a 2-parter episode called Bisexual Education.
Yes, we're in the second bi.
Yeah.
The second sexual.
Yes, John has not quit that joke. We're still going on with that joke.
I just remembered it today. I just remembered it just now.
Oh, just now. Okay. Yeah. I was thinking maybe you're out and about at work or whatever, and just randomly thinking, I'm waiting for the opportunity to bring that joke up again.
Yeah, let's go with that. It's just been on my mind. I haven't been able to think of anything else.
I wouldn't be surprised. Let's do a little bit of a recap of the previous episode.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you have listened to it already, feel free to skip ahead if you haven't. So, in the last episode, I talked about my experience growing up as a queer girl in Kathmandu. Oh, by the way, if you haven't listened to the last episode, I am bisexual. I identify as bisexual or pansexual. I use them interchangeably. So, let's move on.
Yep.
So, I talk about my experience growing up as a queer girl in Kathmandu. I talked about how the lack of representation, queer representation in media and real life meant that I did not recognize my own queerness for a long time. So when I had a crush on a girl, I would just dismiss it as just me really wanting to be very good friends with them. Whereas I was always able to tell when I had a crush on a boy, even if the feelings were pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I just didn't categorize it as romantic feelings
Either you
or queer feelings.
Either you wanted to be in a relationship with someone, or you really wanted to be their roommate.
Yeah. Yes. Another joke from last episode that John is bringing up. I also talked about how when I was really young, I recognized, even though I didn't quite know that these were queer thoughts, I still knew that I shouldn't express them.
Yeah.
In hindsight, when I think about it, I feel like it was just layer upon layer of denial, basically. Layer 1 was, I'm sure I'm not gay. I'm sure these aren't gay thoughts. Layer 2 was, just in case they are gay thoughts, I should not tell people about it.
Yeah.
Which would be the top layer? It's probably the other way around. But anyway, what it really meant was that I grew up internalizing homophobia, and then my own fears of being caught turned into hatred, which I would direct towards other gender non-conforming students in my class, kids in my class. I also talked about how I finally came to terms with my sexuality, or at least I was able to accept that I am indeed bisexual, pansexual, and I was finally able to say it out loud when I was 19 to a group of university's friends.
Yeah.
And, well, now that I had come out to my friends, all my problems were obviously solved. My internalized homophobia was cured, and a life of self-affirmation, self-actualization was ahead of me.
That's not what happened.
Let me please live in this dream world, John. I would like to believe that that's what happened, but obviously, unfortunately, my journey with my sexuality was not straight.
Unfortunately.
Lol. Pun not intended, but I suppose it applies. Even as I came to terms with acknowledging, accepting that I am bisexual, there were still quite a lot of aspects of my own identity that I hadn't quite looked into. There's quite a lot of introspection left to do still.
Yeah.
Let's take a few steps back and talk about my coming out.
Okay.
So, when I came out of university, a big catalyst to me coming out was actually a friend of mine, a really close friend of mine, coming out as bisexual herself.
Mm-hmm.
She continues to be a really close friend of mine. She and I were friends since before we started university, actually. So, we didn't meet when we were doing our A-levels, but just right after. And just before we started uni. At that time, she hadn't told me that she was bisexual. It was only after we started university that she started telling people, basically.
Yeah.
And I have this, I don't actually remember the specific moment when she told me this, but I have this distinct memory of her and we were chatting to this other girl from the same uni. And she was telling this girl about the fact that she's bisexual. So that was the first time that she was telling this girl, right? So they were talking about this for a bit, and then my friend left. So I was with this other girl, just chatting, right? Yeah. And when she walked away, this girl, she turned to me, giggling a little bit, and said, "Are you also bisexual?"
Okay. It's a very strange response.
Yeah. And I told her, "No, I'm not," while also giggling.
Okay.
Basically, we were all just essentially very uncomfortable. And then I asked her, "Are you bisexual?" Giggling. And she said, "No, I'm not."
It sounds like this is a very strange interaction.
It was extremely strange. And that interaction stayed with me for a while. I remember when I walked away thinking, why the hell was I giggling? Why the hell was she giggling? What was that interaction, basically?
It sounds very surreal, to be honest.
I think it was that I was uncomfortable with being asked that question. And essentially, I just decided to mirror her. And she was clearly uncomfortable as well. So her discomfort, she expressed by giggling.
Yeah.
And I just mirrored her.
Yeah.
I thought about that quite a lot afterwards. And then I continued to watch my friend, who was so confident in telling people who she was. And it also seemed like most people, if they were a little bit taken aback, they were not, that was the most of it. They seemed to take it quite well.
Yeah.
And that gave me the confidence to come out myself.
Yeah.
It goes to show that coming out and living a life that is authentic to oneself can not only be really affirming for yourself, but also give courage to other people to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not trying to say that it's anybody's responsibility to try to be the leader of the trailblazer. It's nobody's responsibility to do that. Your primary responsibility is always to yourself. And of course, coming out is not just about being able to confront your own internalized homophobia and expressing it. It's also about whether or not the environment in which you're coming out is actually safe.
Yeah.
One thing that I can say is I still haven't come out to my parents.
Yeah.
Because it would not be safe for me to do that.
It would not be very supportive.
Yeah. They would not necessarily be physically abusive. I mean, I think we're beyond the point where they have a lot of physical or financial control over me.
Yeah.
But it would mean that I would essentially be telling them, me coming out to them would be the same as saying, I don't want a relationship with you anymore.
Yeah.
Just saying goodbye to any relationship.
Which fucking sucks, to be honest.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
We will talk about more of that in a bit, of course. That is something that's going to come up. But anyway, so when I came out, I remember feeling so free basically, at least at university. When I went to university, I was able to be well and truly myself, to not have to hide a part of me. And that is extremely freeing.
Yeah.
Of course, when I was at that age, in my mind, if you are homophobic, that means that you are like, you hated gay people, you wouldn't want to talk to them. There was no nuance to my idea of homophobia. What that meant was that a lot of homophobia that I was experiencing just sort of like fell under the radar.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of weird questions asked my way as well. So part of it was ignorance, part of it was homophobia for sure.
Yeah.
I remember there was this one guy who used to constantly try to gauge basically how queer/straight I am, because bisexuality is a bit weird for them. So they would ask me, are you more attracted to men or to women?
Yeah.
They would ask me what the ratio of my attraction was, which of course is not how attraction works. They would also do this weird thing. So there was this one guy, friend of mine, he used to do this thing where he'd ask me, of these two people, who do you find hotter? Like, he'd ask me about couples from the university, right? So he might say, Tom and Amy, who's hotter? Or Ram and Sita, who's hotter? One thing that used to also come up quite a lot would be people assuming that I must be very promiscuous and I must definitely be open for threesomes.
Yeah, of course they do, yeah.
You know the friend that I talked about, the friend who also came out as bisexual?
Yeah.
So she had a boyfriend, and she was a really good friend of mine, right? For some reason, he thought, because of the fact that his girlfriend is bisexual and I am her friend who's also bisexual, that threesome is on the table.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember one time, I think it was that we were walking back from university, going back home, and we were along the same path, and his girlfriend was not there. It was just him and me, right? We were just going back. Okay. And then he has this conversation where I can see that he's very much being very earnest. And he says, look, Dawa, I also really want to have this threesome. I can see that you wanted to. Okay. I'm sure that you wanted to. I also really want to have this threesome, but you have to understand, we go to the same university. It'll be really awkward because we have to come back. There'll be a lot of, there could be a lot of awkwardness around it. So we will have to wait till the last day of our university to have this threesome, but with the understanding that we'll never see each other again.
Okay. Lord of the confidence.
And I was like, what? I remember it took me about, how it takes me, like, it throws me off whenever you make a weird joke and I have to like basically try to decode what that conversation basically was, what that thing was. That's how I felt in that conversation. I remember just being like, what is he saying? Is he joking? Is he serious? What is he talking about?
What the hell are you talking about?
What is happening right now? And I remember telling him, like, I do not understand what you're saying. And he was like, oh, Dawa, don't be coy. It's okay. Don't be coy. Yeah. And this is one thing that I'm always, really taken... I'm always surprised by the level of confidence.
The level of audacity.
The level of confidence and audacity that straight men have, generally. So this guy, when I said to him, look, bro, I have never had any attraction towards you. I've never wanted to have anything less than a threesome. Or like, the last thing I ever want to see is you naked.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, grapes are sour, I guess.
Sour grapes.
I know. And I was,
oh
what do I do with this level of delusion, basically?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
What? Where did you get that from?
The one thing I would say...
Clearly you do actually want to have sex with me, but you're just playing coy.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
The one thing I will say about him is that he must perhaps be a very happy man.
Yeah.
To be able to live with that level of self-assured security...
it's Dunning-Kruger, happiness achieved through the Dunning-Kruger effect, I guess.
Yeah. Either he's a very happy man or he's going to have a really crushing crash into reality.
Yeah.
However, one thing we've also noted a lot of times is that white straight men tend to fail upwards. Look at Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Look at fucking Elon Musk.
Yeah.
They seem to fail and keep...
what's his face? Christopher Columbus?
Yes.
Apparently
we're quoting Trevor Noah, by the way.
Yeah, but he apparently insisted that he had found America for the rest of his life to his deathbed.
No, found in India, you mean?
Sorry, found India to his deathbed, even when it was very obvious it wasn't India.
Yeah. So it was very interesting that I was still not able to see that these were, just homophobic tropes still. So there still continued to be a combination of both homophobia and sexism because I was still objectified. I was still sexualized. And a lot of times men would treat my sexuality, my bisexuality as something for their benefit, basically.
Yeah.
They would think I was bisexual to entertain them. They would talk about how, oh, I would love to have a bisexual girlfriend. There's nothing hotter than watching two women kiss.
Yeah, I always found that so interesting because I always found it so interesting how a lot of men would be like, oh yeah, it'd be great if my girlfriend had sex with someone else, so long as they're a girl. It's like that you're basically saying you're okay with your girlfriend having sex with another person.
Yeah.
I remember you told me about this before when you said it's because fundamentally they don't see it as like a threat. They don't see it as sexual. It's like, you're an idiot if you think that.
Yeah.
You're an idiot if you think that homosexual relationships aren't real relationships. Your girlfriend is going to leave you.
Especially if it is female relationships.
Yeah.
They're less likely to consider a relationship between two women because they just generally don't take women as seriously.
Yeah.
So any relationship a woman can have with another woman can't be taken as seriously.
Exactly.
The effect of this, and also, of course, my own internalized misogyny as well, was that I felt the need to perform my bisexuality, basically to prove that I am actually bisexual. And my performance was very much male heteronormative.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is I wanted to prove to people that I was attracted to women, and my only frame of reference of what attraction to women looked like I said, talked about in the last episode as well, was by objectifying women, by talking about their boobs, talking about their butt, by talking about how hot they look.
Yeah.
And not really a lot about what they're like as people.
Yeah, there's a bit of a theme of like repetition here. Of, like you move forward in one stage of like, coming out, but you're still repeating the same cycles.
Yeah, of course, because it's obviously, like I said before, I was still quite young, but also in general, there's quite a lot of layers of self-hatred, misogyny that I needed to shed, and I was doing it maybe one at a time, or sometimes even taking a few steps back in the process.
2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah, and it still remained the fact that having grown up in an environment where being a woman was essentially not as, a woman is not taken as seriously, a woman's position is more of as an object or as someone who's a secondary character to a male main character.
Yeah.
Someone who grew up in that environment but yet very much believed that I am the main character in my life story. I felt like the only role that I could perform was that of the male characters, the main characters that I've seen, which were men.
Yeah.
And the way that they conducted themselves and their relationships was the way that I tried to emulate.
Yeah.
So the sum result of that situation was that I essentially combined misogyny, objectifying of women, with my need to prove loudly that I am bisexual.
Yeah.
And so I would very loudly and aggressively objectify women around me.
Yeah.
So my classmates, which is so, when I think about it, in retrospect, it's so, I don't know, I feel very ashamed of it.
Yeah.
I did things that men had done to me and made me uncomfortable. Obviously, I didn't go and harass women physically or anything like that.
No.
But I would talk about them in the way that I used to hate knowing that men talked about me.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, check out her ass. Or, do you see the rack in her? I would say shit like that.
Yeah.
It's so distasteful, basically. And it wasn't actually an expression of how I really felt. It was a true expression of my own sexuality. For me, it was the only way that men would believe me or take me seriously. And I felt the need to perform my sexuality in that way. I've actually spoken also to other men. So I have a friend who identifies as asexual, and he used to talk to me about how when he was younger as well, he felt the need to pretend to perform his sexuality. So in his case, it was also tied to his masculinity, basically. So if he didn't speak about women in the same way, if he didn't act like he was horny all the time, basically, and constantly happy to talk about women in these ways, then men would say, oh, what's wrong with you? You're gay.
Yeah.
Or they'll be like, oh, have you got a dick in your pants? Because you don't sound like someone who's got a dick in your pants.
I don't, it wasn't as strong, I don't think it was as strong, I got a strong feedback myself, but I know when I was younger as well, I sometimes felt this urge to like do that. I often had some family members be like, oh, hey John, check out this girl on Instagram, she's so hot, isn't she? And I remember just finding it so weird. Like, why, what's the purpose of like going to your cousin and being like, hey, check it out, this girl's hot.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. So what? We both agree. So now what? Can we talk about something productive, please?
Yeah. One of the reasons that I did that was also because it meant that I was accepted amongst a group of male peers.
Yeah.
I had a lot of male friends at that time. And the reason that I actually had closer friendships with men than with women at the time.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not trying to say that it's because like I just don't get along with women. You know, women are just so much drama. That's not really what it was. The reason that I felt like the reason that I had more male friendships were because the desires that I had for me, which were I wanted to feel free. I wanted the ability to roam the streets of Kathmandu without thinking of myself as a woman and the limitations that comes with it. Basically, if you're a woman in Kathmandu, you can't be out and about late at night. It's not considered safe. Your families wouldn't let you. My family did not, by the way. I did it anyway. And I just wanted to be liberated from the limitations that were placed on my gender.
Yeah.
Which were not the fault of women, obviously, but of the society and the structure that we lived in. And I did the things that I thought were masculine things that I considered freeing. For example, I smoked a lot of weed. I smoked in general quite a lot. I'm really happy that I quit smoking. I wish at that time someone had, I don't really know if I would have not smoked if someone had told me, but I wish that I had the foresight that I have now about how it's just not cool. I mean, and also it's just not good for your body.
Yeah.
It was an addiction that was really, really difficult for me to kick, but I'm really proud of the fact that I have. But anyway, I formed self-destructive habits that I thought made me come across as strong as a man.
Yeah.
And this is an example of how toxic masculinity can affect women as well, because women feel like the only way to be equal to men is by being a man themselves, or at least performing masculinity in specific ways. And of course, it didn't necessarily mean that I was accepted in those circles. Of course, the men would hang out with me, but they still saw me as a girl and still considered me to have those limitations. And it didn't necessarily mean that I didn't experience homophobia. Now, an interesting thing about homophobia as a woman is that men are not afraid of lesbians. They're afraid of gay men. Well, essentially, the reason they're afraid of gay men is because they consider the existence of a gay man a threat to their own masculinity.
Yeah.
Am I right in interpreting that in that way?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah? Whereas they don't really take lesbians or gay women seriously. They just think of them as, gay for their entertainment.
Yeah.
However, obviously not all women, but there were a few women who did take me as a threat.
Yeah.
I mean, I told you about that girl back in high school who basically was, when I told her that my sister is bisexual, she's not, but I just did that. Well, it's a long story. If you want to hear about it, go back to the previous episode. Long story short, I was very messy.
Yeah.
But anyway, when I told her that my sister is bisexual, her response was, "How did you know? Is it because she? Was it that she tried to rape you?"
So the expectation is like
the assumption.
The assumption is that you're a threat because you're a predator.
Yeah, if you're bisexual, if you're queer, then you must be a predator.
Yeah.
And I also had a female friend of mine, tell me that she told another female friend of hers, someone I didn't really know very well, that I was bisexual. And then that girl told her, "Aren't you afraid of being in a room with her alone?" Because we used to hang out and smoke weed, and we used to sometimes it would be just the two of us hanging out and smoking weed or like watching TV or whatever.
Jesus Christ.
So they just assumed that if I were alone in a room with a woman, I would immediately try to rape her.
Okay. Apparently.
Yeah. And I don't think I really, basically I used to find those things annoying, but I don't really think I really took it as seriously as I should have.
Yeah.
I didn't, I just thought it was funny and mildly annoying, and that was that.
Yeah.
And I don't think I completely appreciated the homophobic environment that I lived in, just the degree of homophobia that I lived in, and I also know that if I was a man, I would not have come out to my friends like that.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
Or at least it would have taken a really long time.
Yeah, you're far less likely to get nearly the level of support you did.
Yeah, so at least at university. After university, I met a few gay men. I made some really good Nepali gay friends.
Yeah.
Met this friend who initially came out as bisexual. Actually, it is quite common in Nepal, maybe outside as well, I'm not sure, for gay men to initially come out as bisexual even when they are gay.
Yeah.
The reason that they do that is because if they come out as bisexual, it's sort of like it shows that they're still attracted to women, and for men, being attracted to women is tied to their masculinity, which is something we've talked about already.
It's like a bit of a, it's a bit of a half step, I guess.
Yeah. So he'd come out as bisexual initially, and then eventually he came out as being gay.
It's interesting because I know more often than not, what's the thing that's levied at bisexual women is like, you're just doing it for attention, or because you're just doing it
Yeah.
to try it out or something.
Yeah, and which of course I've heard as well myself quite a lot. I also had a friend from high school actually. So I used to go to A levels college with him, and I met him after university. He went to a different university, I went to a different university, and afterwards we caught up. And when I met him, my gaydar basically, and I came out to him so that he would feel comfortable to come out to me, and he did.
Yeah.
And he was so happy when I told him that I'm bisexual. He was like really, really happy, and he said, "Oh my god, this is amazing. I have not had a single Nepali queer friend."
That's great.
Yeah, and it was
It's good to show. It's really good to have a community.
yeah, it was kind of funny though. So he had said to me at the time that his parents were aware of the fact that he's gay. He hadn't come out to them, but they knew it, right? And they were constantly trying to get him to date women, date girls. And apparently, so his parents were loaded. So his dad had said he would pay him lots of money if he had a girlfriend. And so he asked me if I would be his fake girlfriend. So that his parents...
Can you be my beard so my dad will give me a lot of money?
Give me money,
Oh my
and
God.
I had said no at the time because I was like, it's a little too weird for me, really. Like, and I said no, but yeah, that was really funny.
Was this like, after you'd seen him again for the first time in a while?
So no, we after that we just started hanging out quite a lot more because I was
then it
basically
came
his only queer friend at the time.
Right. Okay. I just
And then at one point he said that,
okay.
yeah.
The thought of it like being a thing he sprung on you in like the first meeting and you telling him that you're gay is pretty funny to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
In my expression of my bisexuality, a lot of times when I performed it, it was always very sexual.
Yeah.
It was always, women are hot in these particular ways. That woman is hot. This woman is hot, and so on. And I initially never talked about whether or not I had romantic interest in women. I never expressed them.
Yeah.
Which was partly me emulating how men express their desires towards women, but also there definitely was an element of internalized homophobia in that I felt like I couldn't necessarily have romantic feelings towards women. While I could, have sex with them, I couldn't be in relationships with them.
Yeah.
So I was constantly at the time pursuing straight women.
Yeah.
Like I said previously as well, in high school, I was madly, madly in love with this straight girl who had a boyfriend, and I obviously knew that there was no way that she was going to leave her boyfriend to be in a relationship with me, but it still felt really nice to be on the role of the heartbroken, requited lover.
Yeah.
And it was in some ways a lot easier to do that than to actually be in a real relationship with another woman.
Yeah.
Going back to what I was talking about, the reason that was the case was because there was a part of me that knew that a real relationship with a woman was just not possible.
Yeah.
So anytime I tried to think about having a relationship with a woman, I would feel this pit within me, this deep pit. And it felt like a pit that I just could not bear to face. And so my way out of it was to basically try to sabotage this relationship.
It was easier to just avoid the relationships in the first place.
Yeah,
than confront it.
And it wasn't even like there were never any options for me to explore relationships with women. There were a few times in my young adulthood where I had very strong feelings for women, and when I expressed them, sometimes those women expressed to me that they had those feelings for me.
Yeah.
And as soon as they expressed those feelings for me, I would cut and run. And I would do things that I'm not proud of. I would basically hurt them. I would, dodge their calls, their texts. I would intentionally hook up with other people and then make sure that they know about it. So that, and that would obviously hurt them.
Yeah.
I have now, in the present, reflected more on why I did that. At that time, I don't think I was emotionally mature enough to really think about why I was doing what I was doing. And another thing that really helped me understand what I was doing and made me think about it more was this episode by ContraPoints. I think the episode is called Shame.
Yeah.
So in this episode, she talks about compulsory heteronormativity. And when I watched that episode, I remember feeling as if like there was like floodlights in my life. Like everything was clear. So at a point when everything was completely dark and confusing and I didn't understand myself, I suddenly felt like there were parts of me that I completely understood. And I started thinking more deeply about why it was that I was actively sabotaging any relationships I could have had with women in Nepal, and why it was that I only sought sexual relationships with women, whereas I had romantic relationships with men. And what was really interesting about this was that I was cognizant of the fact that I was doing this.
Yeah.
And I used to ask myself, am I not properly gay? Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
I would be like, am I actually... So it was really confusing because I used to feel imposter syndrome about being bisexual. I used to think, am I pretending to be gay? But who am I pretending to be gay for? Like, it was really confusing because I was like, I want to have sex with women, but what if I don't want to have sex with them? What if I just think I want to have sex with them?
Yeah.
You know, because I don't seem to want to pursue relationships with them.
Yeah.
And it was only after watching that episode, and then also after that, actually hearing that phrase, compulsory heteronormativity, sometimes naming these things have such power because it meant that I was able to look it up and read other women and other people talk about it.
Yeah.
And then I realized that it just all rang true for me.
It all crystallized in your head.
Yeah,
didn't
it all crystallized. And then I started being better able to reflect on my own life and realize basically why it was that I was sabotaging any relationships, any chances of any happiness at all with women. And the reason was because at that time I was convinced that there was no happiness that I could have if I were to have those relationships.
Yeah.
Because I knew that if I were to fall in love with a woman, I would not be able to take her home. I would not be able to make her part of the family that I grew up with. I would not be able to go to social functions. And in my family, women had been cut off for far less.
Yeah.
My father has not spoken to his sister for longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
I've seen her twice, and I would not be able to recognize her if I saw her because she married a Tamang man.
Jeez.
I have heard of family members, parents, committing suicide. Not in my immediate family, but in extended families, because their children, their daughters, married someone of a different ethnicity. And this was beyond ethnicity.
Yeah.
Queerness does not even come into it. And having grown up in a family where, by the way, my parents would also all the time tell me that when I was growing up, they'd tell me that they would be more than happy to cut me off if I were to do anything that would dishonor them. Basically, I would say this in Nepali, they would say anything that would, izzat phane kaam kehi, anything like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And there would be nothing more dishonorable than as a woman to bring a woman home.
Yeah.
And again, this is Nepal. Let's say I were to say, you know what, fuck my family. Where would I go and have a family with my partner? There's nowhere. I just could not conceptualize a place in Kathmandu, in Nepal, where I could have a home with another person, with another woman, where I could have a potential future. I couldn't imagine having a job. I couldn't imagine telling people that I'm gay, and perhaps what my family, my society needed were brave women who would do that. But in all honesty, I was not that brave.
It's a lot, isn't it?
It is a lot,
The entire structure of the society is,
Yeah.
built in a way that you just can't.
Yeah. It requires conviction that I suppose I lacked at the time. And I suppose I'm not sure that I still do, to be honest. I have that level of bravery. And, it's so easy to say that for the right reasons, you might cut off your family as well. But as complicated and twisted as my family is, I love them.
Yeah.
I love my mother. I love my father. I love my siblings and my aunts. I love being part of the culture and traditions that they have passed me down. But I couldn't imagine being able to hold on to those cultures and traditions as long, if I were to basically pursue the path that, of being queer.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about what being in a serious relationship with a woman would do to me, what the consequences would be for me. I knew that if I were to bring a girl home or publicly be in a relationship with a woman, it would hurt my family deeply, especially my parents. I knew that they would become subjects of gossip in their community. They would feel unable to go to any social functions, basically face them in any way at all. My parents used to tell me when I was young, I'll tell you this in Nepali and then I'll tell you what the translation is. They used to say, "Chori, टाउको निहुराउनु पर्ने काम नगर है," which translates to, don't do anything that would cause us to have to bow our heads in public. And I felt that there was just not a choice to be made here. There wasn't any way that I would have any happiness at all if I were to fall in love with a woman. So the alternative was to sabotage any and all relationships that I could possibly have with women.
Yeah, but like the thing is that you shouldn't have had all that pressure on you. You know, it shouldn't be that you're responsible for how other people may see your parents, for how shitty that part of society is, you know? Like, it shouldn't all be on you, and your parents really shouldn't have put that on you, as much as it would have caused consequences for them. They should have put your needs and your wants before their own, to be honest.
It's true. It's more about maintaining a status quo that benefits a very small fraction of the society, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
To be honest, the status quo, that if we are to uphold the status quo, it only benefits, maybe not even them fully, but it only benefits straight men who are wealthy as well and who have got all other things going on for them.
Yeah.
It doesn't help women. It doesn't help queer people. It doesn't help minority ethnicities.
No.
I remember reading this article years ago by a gay man in Kathmandu. In that article, he talked about how no gay man in Nepal would be looking for a relationship on Grindr. And I remember when I was reading that article, it was, I think, in the second or third paragraph of the article that he said that, I just stopped reading beyond that point. Because I knew that, you know, it was before I knew what the word compulsory heteronormativity was, and it was before I was ready to accept that side of me. I was still at a point where I thought, oh, I'm so progressive, I'm so feminist, I'm so all of those things. So I was still not at a point where I was willing to have that level of self-reflection. And so what I did was I just shut myself down, stopped reading that article beyond that point.
Yeah.
I actually did go back and revisit that article later on, and it was really interesting. There was another thing that I wish I had finished that, actually, because there was another thing in the same article that actually also resonates with me with me from when I was, you know, a younger queer person in Nepal. So the gay man who wrote that article, he was talking about how younger gay men in Kathmandu only seem to want to date foreigners on Grindr. So if they realized that the person they matched with was another Nepali man, they would immediately block them.
Yeah.
I understood where that came from. When I was in Kathmandu, I did have a Tinder account, which was basically, you know, for both men and women. But I did not have my photo in it. I didn't have my name. It was literally a blank profile. The only thing that I had on my account was my age.
Yeah.
And that I was female.
Yeah.
The reason I did that was because I was terrified of the idea of anyone I know seeing my profile out there. And I don't mean just in case like somebody saw that I was bisexual, but also some men saw it.
Yeah.
I was terrified of the idea of being seen as wanting to date, basically, because of like all the implications of, you know, promiscuity that came with it. It was really interesting to see that gay men were also basically avoiding dating Nepali men because they were afraid to run into people that they might know.
Yeah.
And it going back to their family. I really wish at that time that I had the courage to seek out more people, you know, more queer people like myself, just so that we would have more of a community. One thing that I really hope is that if, you know, younger gay women are listening to this video, one thing that I really hope, like, you know, when you told me about the podcast with all the young women, they seem to be so much more confident. Basically, I haven't listened to that, but they, from what it sounds, seem to have more of a, like, a proper head on their, like, shoulders, basically, if that makes sense. Anyway, we're now at the end of our podcast, and we're at the section where we talk about stupid shit that men have said to me.
Yeah. What's it this time?
So, today, I'm going to talk about how one guy once said when I was at university and I started dating a boy, I thought you were bisexual, how come you're dating a boy now?
Okay. Yeah.
Basically, completely misunderstanding the basic tenets of what being bisexual is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the fucking phrase. It's in the fucking word.
I'm attracted to both of them. They're like,
Yeah, I'm attracted to two or more genders, essentially.
So, well, how come you're only being attracted as one right now?
Yeah. So this is also another thing. I remember when he said that to me, I felt attacked basically, and that's one other thing that added to my imposter syndrome, basically feeling like, oh, why is it that I don't pursue relationships with women without having much consideration, much thought of like the world that we live in, the society we live in, and how it's so difficult to be queer.
Yeah.
I remember feeling that I need to double my efforts in performing my bisexuality. I have to talk even more loudly about how I find boobs great. I don't know.
To be fair, they are, but
sure. But you know
Beyond the
what I
point.
mean. You know what I mean. What I want to say is that that guy, along with other people as well, definitely made being queer a lot harder for me.
he can eat shit.
He can eat. Well, hopefully he's now, become enlightened. Who knows? You know what? It was so long ago, and I feel like I would like to basically assume, I would like to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they've grown. I have certainly grown quite a lot.
I will say you're more mature than I am.
Thanks. Thank you very much. This is the end of the bisexual education saga. I'm not saying that this will be the last time we ever talk about being bisexual and being queer in Nepal, but I would like to hope that next time it's not just me rambling on and on about my stories.
Yeah.
I think it's high time that we have other people coming on this show and talking about their stories.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to that as well. And until then, bye.
Bye.
चिया पियौँ, बात मार्यौँ, आज हामी दुईले गफ गफ गर्यौँ.